Back in before the indie days, I spent an enormous amount of keyboard time on my blog trying to help writers get past myths, the myths that came up. And I call it killing the sacred cows of publishing. And I did a lot of them. Some of them are very dated. They're still up on my website for free if you want to dig back into the archives and other stuff. And you can find some of them up under the tab at the top. But yeah, they apply to traditional publishing and they're pretty dated at this point in time. We still have an enormous number of sacred cows, and some of them are still the same. The silliness of thinking you need an agent to sell something to New York, I mean, that's just beyond silly. It's gone so far into the myth category here that and at some point I'll probably deal with it a little bit. But myths like that. Here's where this stuff comes from, and here's what you got to be careful of. You're sitting here listening to an older writer who's been around in publishing for 35 years. Okay? Now, if I was teaching you right now the methods that I used when I came into publishing in the early 80s and late 70s, and what worked in the early 80s and late 70s, most of you would run screaming. Okay? And I assume that most of you trust I'm not going to do that. Now, I may mention the good old days and what happened when I was coming in here, but I'm certainly not trying to teach it. In fact, it is so outdated, my method coming in, that it's just, there's parts of it that still are right, and parts of it I did right, and then our other parts are like head-shakingly, wow, would that not work today? And so I have, thankfully, because of teaching workshops here on the Oregon coast, my wife and I started those workshops 11 years ago, 99. I guess that was 13 years ago, that we have managed to keep up. We have managed to watch everything change. We've managed to be out on that front wave of everything going on in publishing because we're both full-time writers and we had to be to keep up. And we were both mid-list writers, and we were both editors, and we'd worked with writers, and now we're being back editors with Fiction River, which is just great fun. And so, we're just having all kinds of fun here, but that's kept us up on the current edge of what's going on, and that's what I'm going to try to teach. However, here's what goes on. Traditional writers, you'll see this in some of the leaders of some of the main organizations out there, like Authors Guild. Oh my heavens. I mean, he came in doing something a certain way. Never really was a full-time writer. Got rich, but never really was a full-time writer. He's always been a lawyer. And you know who I'm talking about, and if you don't, go look it up. But basically, he's been trying to hold writing into his way of doing things. Now, he has no understanding what it's like down in the mid-list level because he's always been a bestseller, right from his first nonfiction book and his fiction books after that. Always been a bestseller. Always been treated differently by New York publishers. He has no idea what goes on for the mid-list writers like me or beginning writers. He just has no idea. And so he's going on yapping about and trying to hold the world into this arcane vision that he had when he came in 25 years ago. And it's just dangerous. So what also happens, perfectly good people that have the best of intentions, they'll suddenly get invited or decide on a vacation they're going to go by a writer's conference or stop at a science fiction or a mystery conference or a romance conference, and they'll sit up there in front because they've got 15 or 20 books published, and they're up there in front, and they haven't looked around. They haven't needed to. They've been doing fine in traditional publishing. Their editors have been doing fine. Their agent hasn't ripped them off that they know of. Because they're not paying any attention, they're letting their agent take care of it all, and so they're just drifting on, having a gay old time, doing what they want to do, not knowing how much of their money is actually getting to them, not knowing anything about what's going on in any other level of writing or indie, and maybe you've heard it a little bit on a writer's list and go, oh, I don't want to do that self-publishing stuff, and they'll sit up there on the panel and they'll tell you exactly how, in an authoritative voice, how they came in and how that's the right way of doing it. For them, it was 20 years ago. Zero doubt. They're not lying. Although a lot of writers lie on panels, but they're not lying. They'll tell you how they did it, and they'll swear by their agent, and they'll swear by whatever. And I mean, I'm sorry. You sit there and all you can do is go, oh, wait until that wake up day happens. And for a lot of them, it never will. They'll just retire and die happy, and thinking that their way is the only way. Well, their way doesn't work anymore. My way that I came into publishing doesn't work anymore. It's a brand new world. It's a brand new hybrid. And right now, the new writers, this is a new golden age of short fiction and of fiction. And so it's just fantastic. The opportunities are everywhere, and you can be found. You don't have gatekeepers if you don't want to go through them anymore. You can go around them, over them, climb over them, knock them down, whatever you want to do. You can be your own gatekeeper. It doesn't matter anymore. That's what's wonderful about this. And again, the whole myth about promotion. Okay, that's something that is the same that when I came in. I mean, I'd send a story off to Asimov's, and did I think I had to promote it? Well, of course not. I wrote the next story. Well, just because you put a story up on Kindle and Smashwords and Pubbit and Kobo doesn't mean you have to promote it. No, you just write the next one, and we'll talk about that too. So certain elements have remained the same. This promotion is a myth. It's a huge myth. And if a whole bunch of you are sitting there saying, well, that's not the way it works, how am I ever going to get found? I'll explain it to you. You get found by writing better stories, and you let the readers do the work for you. They'll find you. Trust me, just like in the old days. You think my first book, Laying the Music to Rest, got one nickel of promotion? Not one. I mean, I barely got an advance for the dumb thing back in 1987. I mean, and it was put out, and it was just put out. I mean, I didn't even know it was out when it came out. And it was my first novel. And so, that's the stuff. Nothing has changed. That's the same stuff. Now, the what has changed is this big, huge myth belief among writers that you have to promote everything. Well, I've done some blogs. If you want to read about that, go back to my website and dig them up. They're back somewhere, whenever they were. I don't know, October of 2012, I think, something like that. But there are a lot of other stuff that's very, very different that writers have to pay extreme attention to. Let me mention a couple right here in this first video, and on knocking down myths. You do not want an agent to negotiate a contract for you anymore. That was fine 25 years ago. I mean, I had the same agent for 17 years, and I still like her, and I still credit her with a lot of good stuff. That was then. I don't have an agent now. Haven't had for 7 or 8 years. 17 years, I had the same agent. I liked her. She's still a friend. I still think that everything, what she did for me was wonderful. But again, it was in that previous period of time where it was right. Well, now, agents negotiating contracts, oh my heavens, the contracts have gotten so nasty from traditional publishing that your only hope of getting any kind of decent contract at all is get an IP, an intellectual properties attorney. And they are reasonably cheap. You can usually get one to look at a contract for $250 to $400 or something like that, and tell you what in the world you're signing. Then if you want to hire them to actually call the editor and negotiate the contract for you, or call the legal department and negotiate with other lawyers over your contract, then it may cost you a few more. But if you've got a $10,000 contract, just a small mid-list contract, and you're going to give your agent $1,500 for that, well, you can spend $500 more to have an attorney tell you what the heck you're signing and what to negotiate and what it means. Because you can sign your entire career away these days, guys. You can just literally sign a document that will stop your writing. And the point of this workshop is to not stop your writing, it's to tell you how to make a living. And there are documents, there are clauses in these documents that you sign that can stop your writing, that can put the control of your career and what you do in your office at home in the hands of some accountant in New York. And that's not what you want. Trust me, that's not what you want. And so, again, this is the area that things are very different. Back when I came in, no issue. Contracts were simple. I mean, I got many, many contracts that were 1 and 2 and 3 page long for a book. Now I get short fiction contracts that are longer than that. So the reality is that it is a different world. It is a different legal system. Things are different. I will try to point out along the way here in some of these topics where the myths come from and what's reality in 2013. Okay? I will try my best to make sure. And if you have any questions at all on any of this, of course, the forum section down at the bottom of the main page is where we're going to have conversations and questions. And I got a hunch there are going to be a lot of questions. Okay, and if you ask a question, I'll say, I haven't got to it yet. I will get to it. Then just be patient. All right? All right, I'll be back with some more stuff in just a second.